All right, the first thing I want to talk about is the idea of combining a class with the user interface. Why would we do that? So that we can launch several copies of the window, of the dialog at the same time. Just like you can have several turtles on the screen or whatever, you might want several windows on the screen. Now, I don't see a reason for us to make all of our user interfaces like that, but I at least want to show that it's possible. So if you recall, to define a class, we just use the class keyword. Like that, right? And then we can define an init, which, takes some value. Don't know what that value is going to be. And it does something with that value. Print the value. So that down here we can do, dummy D, and when we run it, it should print that value. Hope I haven't botched that. Yeah, invalid syntax. I botched it because you don't declare variables like you do in Java. D is equal to dummy semicolon. Excuse me, parentheses in parentheses. But I need to pass in a value to fill that in. Hello, like that. And so when it creates the dummy object, it prints hello, because that's what we passed into the constructor, into the init function. If we want to write something that doesn't take a value, we would just take that out, but then we better get value from somewhere else. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a really, really simple GUI, but it's going to be based on the idea that you can create the application and then run it. And we're going to see if that works for us. So from tkinter with an I, import everything. I'm not going to mess with importing the buttons and whatever. We're going to make a class called app. It's our application. We're going to write a define def underscore underscore init underscore underscore parentheses self comma master. Now master is going to be a reference to the root window that we create by calling the TK constructor. We could just call the TK constructor right here and there, but instead we're going to pass it in. That way we could create several apps if we wanted to. So let's make a new frame. Passing in that window as our master window. We're going to pack it. We could save the packing for the end, or we could do it now. Now let's make a button. Self.button is equal to button with a capital B. Frame, we're going to insert it into that frame. We're going to put some text on it. Quit. We're going to set the color of the button equal to red. And when it's run, it's going to call the quit command. Notice that quit is a function. Whenever we specify a command for the button to execute, it's going to be a function there, but we leave off the parentheses. We'll see that when we call a function that we write, when we invoke a function, when we have a button that calls a function that we're going to write rather than a built-in function. All right, so make sure that you get the tabbing of the next part right because of the way I space this out. Did you have to space it out like that? Nah. But According to my screen, I am 2 tabs in. So I'm going to pack that button, self.button.pack. But I'm going to put in an argument here, a named parameter. Side is equal to left. Take off the quotes. Side is equal to left. Yes, all caps. Left is something that's defined as part of the tkinter module. I do have this going on.
Do you
Yeah.
gain or lose anything by putting the pack inside the init versus the way you showed us last week of having them all grouped up at the bottom?
No, you don't gain or lose anything. What the example I'm doing now is just packing them as soon as we create them,
Okay.
rather than wait until the end, but it doesn't matter either. Alright, now I'm going to make one more button. Self.slogan is equal to button. Don't know why we called it slogan, but I am following an example. And again, I have to specify the frame that the button is going to go into. I have to specify some text for it. Text goes into quotes. Text equals hello. I'm going to scroll this up a little bit because I know some of y'all can't see. Here we go. And when we click it, the command that it's going to run is equal to self.write _ slogan, which is a function we're going to write. Now we're going to have to pack that button as well. So self.slogan.pack. I don't know why I'm saying side is equal to left here in the example. That's what they show. But honestly, I would think that I would be putting it on the right. But first I'm going to follow the example precisely. I don't remember if I changed that the last time I did this. Alright, so now we're going to write a function for this hello button to actually call. It calls a function called write slogan. Well, we better write one. So we're going to define a new function. I better backspace it. Remember, keep track of our tabs. The function definitions are just one tab over. Wish I wasn't doing that. Wish it was behaving like a standard Windows app when I hit that key. But anyways, okay. So I'm one tab over now. I'm out of that function. I could even stick a return statement at the bottom of it, just of the one before it, to hammer in that that function is done. So define write _ slogan parentheses self. All the functions that you write in a class have to have at least one variable, one parameter, and the first one is the self reference. And when that's clicked, we're just going to print a message out to the command console. It's not going to even change anything on screen. tkinter is easy to use! Exclamation mark. If we feel like it, we could put a return there as well. We are done with our class now. I'm going to put a little comment here, end class. That's necessary? Nah. The examples always show packing them as you create the objects, and I like waiting until the end, but there's absolutely no difference in the way that behaves. Okay, so down here at the bottom, you know what we could do is we could put all this inside of one of those if, you know, main equals main, but we're not going to. Root is equal to tk. We're going to create a new tk interface. We're going to create this application window, and then we're just going to hang out until the user closes everything. And I'm afraid to run it, but I need to. So let's save it. And it created a little window. The quit text is in red because we told it to be. If you remember that FG is equal to red. And we have a hello button, and every time we click hello, it pops that up. Now if we did this right, if this is implemented correctly, and I think it is, we could create two of these little windows up at the same time. So I'm going to try to do that, and then I'm going to pause, walk around, make sure everybody's got it going. I'm going to make a new one. app2 is equal to app root. Now we have two instances of the app class, which is just our window, right? We did class app up here. We could have given it a better name than app. You know, I usually do silly names. Alrighty. So when we run it, boom. Okay, that didn't quite work, did it? Alrighty. Well, I'm not going to worry about that. If we created two tkinter's, would that have fixed it? Let's give that a shot. Root 2 is equal to tk parentheses. App 2 is equal to app root 2. I have no confidence this is going to work, and if it doesn't, then I'll stop wrestling with it. Did that work? Excellent. All right, now we have two little windows. So that's why you might make your user interfaces into classes, so that they can be invoked from within other user interfaces. You know what? I didn't try getting them both to work. Hello, 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 hello. Quit. Your program is still running. Do you wish to kill it? Yeah. This message here, we could pass that in as part of the constructor. You see where we create our app and we pass in a variable? Let's pass in hello and goodbye as our text. Now we're going to have to make some changes here. But the first one says hello. We're going to pass that text in, so we need to go and define a parameter, and we need to define a variable, a self.variable that will hold it. Oh, I wanted my second one to say goodbye. So this isn't going to work because our constructor, our init up here, only accepts one variable other than self. We need to make another one. Text, button name. I like button name. Or just B name. It's easier to type, right? Okay. And then down here where I say text equals hello, make that text equal to B name. See what I just changed here? I'm changing that line. Text equals hello is equal to text equals B name. So now each time I create one of these windows, I can specify what I want the text of that button to be. One of them says hello, one of them says goodbye. Still printing out this silly message, but whatever. So am I going to implement the rest of my examples as classes? I don't know. Probably not. Why? Because it sure does complicate the syntax, doesn't it? Having to put in all those self.thises and self.that's. We could strip out all that stuff and just make it, a simple, chunk of code down at the bottom. So let's go down here and let's comment out these things, because we're going to write some more user interface stuff. I don't feel like making a new file for it. Did that work for everybody, or do I need to slow down? All 7 of us? Okay. Let's give that a shot without implementing it as a class, or at least part of it. Let's just do a little bit of it. Root is equal to tk. We're creating a new window. At the bottom, we're going to need root.mainLoop. In the middle is where all the good stuff goes. So let's create a frame. Frame is equal to frame.root. Let's create a button. I am so sorry, pardon?
Set dot. You were typing that.
I don't know why I said that. Should be as I've written. Don't trust what I say. No, I'm kidding. Alrighty. So button 1 is equal to button, parentheses, frame, comma, text, whoops, text equals wow, comma, what color do we want its text to be? Foreground is equal to white, background is equal to black. And then the command it's going to run is just going to be print wow, which we haven't written this function yet. Print wow. What did I do wrong? I forgot a comma there. Right. All of these need to be separated by commas. These are all examples of named parameters, and just like all parameters, they need to be. That's probably enough. Let's pack the frame, let's pack the button and be done with it. Frame.pack, button.pack. Okay. I forgot to investigate further why we set left on both of these. What would have happened if I'd set the slogan button on the right side? Oh well. I guess we could create two buttons and do the same thing. Let's do that. Button 2 is equal to button. And this is one's going to just be really easy. Frame, text equals, question mark, end quote, comma, command equals, print wow. Both buttons are going to do the same thing. So button 1 we're going to pack and we're going to send it to the left. Side button1.pack side equals left, all caps. Button 2.pack side equals right, all caps. Now we don't have a print wow function yet for these things to call. But we can do that. So up above my root is equal to tk. I'm going to add define print wow, and all it does is print wow, just to show that it's doing something. Very similar, right? Just a little bit. Just about the exact same thing, except we didn't put a quit button. We could have made the button 2 a quit button. Let's run it. Alright, and there we go. We have wow, and then we have the question mark button. And clicking either one of them causes it to quit. So what's the deal with setting both of them to the left? Does it behave any differently? No. Did we have to set the sides at all? Yeah. Okay. So you can push them to the left, you can push them to the right. If you push both of them to the left, they just go to the left in the same order that you specify. So I'm going to undo those changes. I kind of like it saying left and right. So one's going to go to the left, one's go to the right. Let's go ahead and change it to a quit. So change that question mark there, right here, to the word quit. And let's just call the quit built-in function here. I need to break that into 2 lines to make it comprehensible. You don't have to. All right, very similar to the other one, eh? Notice that if you say, I don't want to quit, when it says, are you sure you want to? If you choose cancel, it goes ahead and dies anyways. Probably a better way of implementing a kill than just that then. Yes, sir.
The command equals quit wow. Why is that wow not exactly the same?
Why is that wow what? And I'm sorry, there's a vent right next to me. I can't hear them.
The command is just print wow. When you click that, it prints wow. Shouldn't that be, no, print wow is a function. Huh?
Exactly. Print wow is a function. Exactly. Yeah, I see what you're saying. This looked like it was going to be a function call, like we could embed something like this in it. Heck, let's give it a shot. But it's not going to work. Yeah, doesn't like that.
You're missing a parentheses after wow.
That would explain it. Really? Did I just close everything? But is it really doing it? It's invoking it at that point, but it's not actually registered as registered as a callback function for our button. Which leads me to wonder how you could pass in data into the function, as parameters. Because the way this is being set up right now, we're essentially forcing ourselves to rely upon global variables or class members, like we did up here. I guess we never did. For that. Alrighty. So there are several different variable types that you can use to link. You can link them directly to fields on your user interface. And we saw that last time, right? We had a text field and we associated that with a string var so that if somebody typed in something, we could pull that data out and do something. So there are actually, as far as I know, 4 types of variables that the tkinter class provides for us to link with controls. So those are string var, int var, guess what the next one is, float var, and lastly, boolean var. It's really just about time to create a new file rather than, yeah, I think we better do that. So save whatever you've done, but make a new file. Close the old one or whatever. And when we want one of those values, we call .get. If we need to change the values, you call .set. So, from tkinter import star, give us everything. Name is equal to string var, name.set Bob. Age is equal to int var, I'm not actually planning on writing an interface that uses those two, but maybe we will. And then age.set 15. Then let's print those guys. Print name.get, comma, oops, name.get, parentheses in parentheses, comma, age.get, parentheses in parentheses, like that. So you could just use these as more, you know, why would you bring them in, you know, if you're not going to create a user interface, but you could. I'm going to save this as November 14b.py. Then run it. Ooh, and it blows up. Alright, maybe that was a bad idea. Do we actually have to create a whole framework in order for this to work? Suppose we can. Master equals TK. We got to do that? Yeah, what do you know? Okay. Foolish me. I thought you could just use those on the fly. But that's the syntax form, right? You want to set some data into it, you do that. Now, honestly, when you're creating them, I believe you can set the value right as you create it as part of the constructor. So, you know, another one. City is equal to string var, parentheses, Springfield. End quote in parentheses. No, that blows up. Alrighty, never mind. I do think you can set it as you go that way, but not quite with that syntax. I do recall us doing that last time. So why do you care about some of these data types? Well, Boolean variables, you hook up to checkboxes. You know what a checkbox is. You click it and it's on. You unclick it and it's off. Well, that's a Boolean variable. Click it on, that variable is true. You click it off and that variable is false. And the text fields that we had last time, you hook up to string vars. So let's write something that has some checkboxes. I think I'm just going to comment these guys out because I don't see any need for them in the example that we're going to use. And with that in mind, I'm going to cut this master is equal to TK and put it right above the stuff that we're going to be doing, or underneath it all, wherever. Yeah. And I'm even going to cut that from tkinter import star and push it all the way down here to above master is equal to TK, just so that it looks clean. I just took that top line and I moved it all the way down. Alright, we're going to write a function that prints out the state of two variables that we are going to create. Alright, and I'm sorry, I thought that this would work with Boolean variables, but the example is showing us using int vars. So we're going to go ahead and use int vars. Yes is equal to int var. And we're going to set it equal to 0. Now let's set it equal to 1. Yes.set 1. So what we're going to have is we're going to have two checkboxes, one that says yes and one that says no. And then when they click, we're just going to print out whether they have yes selected, no selected, or both. So let's make another one. No is equal to int var, no.set 0, so that when we run it, this should initialize the yes checkbox to be checked and the no will not be. So let's create a label. Alrighty, and this example is using all sorts of stuff that we didn't use last time, so I'm not too happy about that. I guess we'll run with it. Label, parentheses, master, comma, text, equals, what do you think? Question mark. Now this is really weird syntax, so I really wish that I had concocted an example that didn't do it this way. Dot, after the parentheses, dot grid, parentheses. I'm going to separate this into two lines. Row equals 1. Sticky equals W. Yeah, we'll have to look up what sticky does. And let's spell sticky correctly. Alright, that's really about enough as far as I'm concerned. I want to call main loop right now and see what that's going to do. Because I haven't packed anything. This is a different different way of concocting it. And there you go. We have our text that says, what do you think? I'd really would rather follow our old paradigm at this point. So could we not create our frame? Frame is equal to frame, passing in our master. And then let's just make this L for label. Nah. TXT, no. What am I going to call this? Question equals label.master, and I'm going to remove all this .grid stuff. I should not be modifying this example on the fly. Probably a recipe for disaster. Now let's pack our frame. Frame.pack. Let's pack our question. Question.pack. And let's see how it behaves. Alright, what do you think? Let's create two checkboxes. Because we have two variables, yes and we have no. So yes CB, or yes check, is equal to checkbox, excuse me, check button, parentheses, master, comma, text equals yes, end quote, comma, variable equals, and what are our two variables called? One's called yes. Maybe I should have called it yes var. Yes. And I think that's where I'm going to stop it. I'm going to make another one of these that looks the same, but I'm going to call it no check. No check is equal to check button, master, comma, text equals no, comma, variable is equal to no. Really wish I called it yes var and no var rather than just yes and no. Should have given it a better name. Pardon me? Yeah, variable. There we go. Thank you. Now let's pack yes check and no check. Yes check dot pack. No check dot pack. And since we're not using the grid function in order to nicely space things out, Well, it's okay. We could have used the pack to the left and to the right to put the yes and the no on the same line. That might be kind of cool. But anyways, you see what happened. When it ran, yes was initialized, it was checked, no was not, because of the initial states of those two variables, which we declared way up here. Those four variables. Well, two variables. Next time I'm going to do this, I'm going to make master something shorter. See if I can fit all this stuff on one screen. Kind of too late to do that now, but I should have just made it something like TK lowercase or WN for window or something like that. That's good enough. We don't have a button yet that responds to that stuff. I'd like to see if I can get the checkboxes to go to the left and to the right. So I'm going to set the yes checkbox to the left. Yes check dot pack side equals left. No check dot pack side equals right. Let's give that a shot. Let's see if it looks prettier. There we go. I like that. What do you think? Yes? No? Now let's make a button. The button's going to report on the state of those variables. I need to really master that grid syntax because we weren't having to pack them each time we added them. That would save considerable typing. Are we all good on here, or do I need to walk around? Please let me know. All right. I'm going to delete some spaces, even though it's going to make it a lot harder to read. All right, let's make our button. So above the master.main loop, button is equal to button with a capital B, parentheses master, comma, text equals report. And then command. Command equals, let's just call it report, but we're going to have to write that function. Now let's pack that. Button.pack. But let's send it to the bottom. Side equals bottom. Nope, nope, no quotes. Side equals bottom. So that's the stuff we just added. Those 4 lines right here. Not going to work yet because we haven't written a report function. We're going to have to do def report. Could just write it right here. That's really tacky, but while I'm sitting here, def report, all it's going to do is print out yes, colon, comma, and then yes.get, like that. And then on the next line, print no colon, comma, no.get. Well, when we set the report button to the bottom, that sure didn't work. But I click report. Yes is in fact checked. No is not. When I click the no button and click report and come back and look at my output, yes is checked, so is no. If I deselect them both and click report, then it's going to say that, of course, yes is equal to 0 and no is equal to 0. Now my theory is that those could just easily be Boolean variables as integers. Let's see if that's true. We just have to change where they are declared and set. We still good? So instead of yes is equal to int var, let's change that. It used to be an int var, but we're going to change it to a Boolean var. So yes is equal to Boolean var. And we can't set it equal to 1, we have to set it equal to true. And a no is equal to int var. No, not anymore. I guess I could leave no. Yeah, let's just run the test with yes set like that. You know, why change a whole bunch of things that may not work? So this was dot set parentheses 1. Those are the 2 lines that we changed. Seems to have worked. Yep, yes is true. And then I click that again and I do report and yes is false. I would personally rather see checkboxes tied with Boolean variables rather than with numbers. But underneath it all, a false is a 0 and a true is a 1, right? So it's just syntactically what you like to see. All right, the next example is pretty long. It involves making a class called checkbar and then using that class to create a series of buttons, a series of checkboxes. No, Siri, I wasn't talking to you when I said series. Alrighty, so we may as well give this one a shot too. See if this is exceeding how we want to learn about these things. So I'm making a new file. I'm going to call it November 14C. You know what, that one may be superfluous. Yeah, I think I'm going to skip that one. But let's go ahead and do another one with input fields. From tkinter import star. Instead of calling it master, I'm going to make it a little bit shorter. WN for window is equal to tk, capital T, parentheses in parentheses. Just a second, I need to check something. Sorry about this, guys. So let's do F1 is equal to frame, passing in our master, our window. F2 is equal to frame, passing that in, passing WN in. Let's create a label. Lab1 is equal. I hate mixing ones and L's, but anyways. Lab A is equal to label capital L, passing in F1 as who he's attached to, and his text is just going to say 0, the number 0, I don't know. And then lab B, label B is equal to label, F2, comma text is equal to, I'm just putting stuff in here to play with. Now let's pack everything. F1.pack, F2.pack, lab A.pack, lab B.pack, and then WN.main loop. and we have our two labels, each one in their own frame. When we create a frame, can we set a background color for it? F1 is equal to frame whatever, F2 is equal to frame, WN comma BG is equal to yellow. Just for funs. I want to see if that works. I know we could do it for the label, but nope, that didn't work. Okay, I want to do it for the label then, since that didn't work. So lab B is attached to F2, its text is 1, comma, and its background color is equal to yellow. And we got, you know, our yellow background there. Can we specify the width for the label? tkinter label width. And yeah, you can. You can specify its text. Something called anchor. You can justify it. Let's play with the width of it. We're going to have to stop pretty soon. So the width of label 1 is going to be 200 pixels. The width of label 2 is also going to be 200 pixels. We run it. Boom. Okay. Those are obviously more than pixels. Are those characters? Set it equal to 20. Much better. All right. So we could create some extra frames underneath. We could arrange buttons, you know, on the left and the right. So you have control over your interface by using frames and hooking the labels up to frames rather than to the master window, as we were doing on the previous examples. So can I create an int var and hook that up to the label? We shall soon see. Let's create a couple of, or at least one, an integer variable. I don't have a good name for it yet, so I'm just going to call it I1 is equal to int var, and then I1.set. I'm going to set to the value 1. And then when I create my label, instead of setting its text, I'm going to do variable equals I1, just like we did for our text input fields. And is that going to blow up? Yeah, probably. Let's find out. Yeah, that's what I figured. And it's too bad. I'd like for that to work. tkinter label string var. Maybe you can with strings, but not with ints. Oh, text variable is equal to. Okay. Let's give that a change. Instead of I1 is equal to int var, you see those two lines? I'm changing them. It's I1 is equal to string var, parentheses, I1.set to the string value 1. And then when I create my lab B text variable, it's going to be too long to fit all in one line, so I'm going to kind of space it out here. But it's no longer variable is equal to I1, it's text variable equals I1. Let me make sure that I got that syntax right before I brag about it. Looks that way. Let's give it a shot. All right, why do that? So that that value can update every time that variable updates. We can have a button. Let's create a button. that will change that value. So we know how to do that. BT for button is equal to button, parentheses, text equals click me. Except I forgot to specify what frame it's going on. So I'm going to create one more frame above that. Let me pad this out a little bit. Spaces at the bottom. Okay, so underneath that lab B, let's make one more frame. F3 is equal to frame, passing in our master window. And then BT is equal to button, passing in F3 with a text of click me, and the command is just going to be something called clicked. We need to write a function called clicked now. And again, it's performed to define your functions in the middle. We could always cut them, paste them all the way up at the top. Define clicked. What are we going to do? We're going to get that value out of the text variable. So s is equal to i1.get. Let's convert it into an int. I is equal to int version of s. Let's add 1 to I plus equals 1. And then let's set our I1 variable back to that, to the text version of it. Set the string version, well, we can do it in more than one step. S is equal to the string version of I. You see what we had to do? We got it out of the variable, we converted it to an int, we added 1 to it, and then we set it back into the string so that we can set it into our string var. Now, I hope that works because we out of time. Let's let's give that a shot. We're not out of time. We don't even start till 5:40. What did I do wrong? I never packed. Right. So let's do f3.pack and b3.pack. Just make sure you get those packs in there somewhere. b3.pack and f3.pack. And it blows up. B3 not defined. That's because I didn't call it B3. What did I call it? I just called it BT for button. Alright. So bt.pack. And there we go. Now we have a cute little counter. Okay, so what we're going to do is y'all need some kind of homework over user interfaces. I think we can ask y'all to put together what we have done here based on these examples, and I'll also post a link to the tutorial where I was stealing this stuff from, but remember that I was modifying them as I went along. Write a tkinter application that shows 2 checkboxes. Red and green. And a button and 2 labels. Reds and greens. Like that. Except it's not going to say reds and greens. It's just going to have the number of reds and the number of greens. When the button is clicked, add one. If the red checkbox is selected, add 1 to the label That shows the number of reds. I'm going to go ahead and give the labels name. Num reds and num greens. And if the green checkbox is selected, do the same thing for the number of greens. So I'm going to reword this just a little bit more. The two labels, num reds and num greens, display counters for the number of reds and the number of greens. When the button is clicked, if the red checkbox is selected, add 1 to the red number of reds count, and if the green box is selected, add 1 to the greens count. And they could both be selected or they could neither be selected, in which case, you know, you'd still update the counters appropriately. So there's no else's involved, it's just two ifs. Does that make sense? You'll have two checkboxes, you click a button, and then based on that, it'll update one or both counters. Just like our little app here, if we combine this one, I'll bring that text right back up. If we combine this one with the other one, if it had a checkbox and you clicked one of them and then clicked click me, it would add 1 to one of them, and if you checked the other checkbox and clicked click me, it would add 1 to the other one. So you're going to probably use int vars. No, you'll use string vars and you'll hook those up to the labels. If you can hook int vars up to labels and you figure out how to do that, go ahead and do that instead. Hope that's new. Hope that's not too hard. Hope that's interesting. It's not a seriously complicated user interface, but hopefully it's interesting. Does that make sense? I don't see a lot of nods. I see a couple of nods. Hope it makes sense. If I write it up with a picture of the user interface, hope that'll make sense. Need the code? Which one, C or B? Let's play with our interface just a little bit more to see if we can get labels for those counters. Right, we had 2 counters. We just need 2 more labels. Why didn't we make them text variables, you know, input variables? Because they're not going to type in the number of reds and the greens. We're just displaying counters. So I want to go back to November, the C application, the one with the counters. And when we create our labels, let's pack 1 to the left, pack 1 to the right, but I want to put 2 more labels on here, text descriptions. So where it says Lab A and Lab B, let's do text A is equal to label F1 comma text equals, I'm showing y'all too much of how to do this, but anyways, counter 1. Text B is equal to label F2 comma text equals counter 2. Now we're going to have to pack those as well. So down here, wherever we pack those guys, the labels, which are the counters, are going to get packed to the right. Side is equal to right. So both of those labels get packed to the right. And then those texts, text A dot pack, we're going to push to the left. And there's some possibility that that'll actually work. Yeah. So you see what that did? You know, labels are normally actually used for that, right? Labeling things. And then we're also using them to display the counters. These are just fixed text. That text is never going to change. Alrighty. Any scrolling up or down needed?